Hello and welcome to the York Creators Podcast. My name is Ben Porter and each week you can join me as I chat to someone from York's creative community. This week's guest is Colin Jackson. Colin has worked in arts and cultural education for 28 years and is the founder of Creative Learning Partnerships, a consultancy, project management and event management company specialising in working with young people and communities. He has played a fundamental role in the development of Arts Council England's Arts Award and Artsmark initiatives. His work has included the delivery of learning programmes for Illuminating York, delivery of the annual Yorkshire Schools Dance Festival, and the development of a learning strategy for the UNESCO Guild of Media Arts. In this episode we discuss the early experiences that drew Colin towards a career in the arts, about passive versus active learning and the teachers that go the extra mile to make a difference for their students, and how technology will affect creativity and education in the future. Colin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Ben.
So you're someone who spent quite a lot of your life in arts and cultural education. Can you remember what it was that made you want to get in that in the first place?
I can. I could tell you so much about it. I was 9 years of age and I was at primary school and we were doing a spoof quiz show, aping a quiz show that was on in the 70s, and I quite liked it. And my teacher must have spotted that I quite liked it because she went up to me and said, "You're quite good at this." And the flame was lit, really. And I went to youth theatre from then, and then I went to university, and I became an actor, and so on and so on. So yeah, when I was at school.
So what brought you to York?
I went to university at Bretton Hall College, which is the Yorkshire Sculpture Park, and decided to stay up here, and did some work in London, working in theatres in London, and I'd done a PGCE, so I thought, well, I'll just try teaching. And I got a job not too far from here and loved it. And it wasn't a case of those who can do and those who can't teach. I found a vent for my creativity within the classroom. You know, there's an artistry in creating those kind of engagements, and yeah, it was a natural progression, really.
So why spend your time in arts education, and what is it that gets you up in the morning?
Young people. I think if ever you start to feel a little bit jaded and a little bit beaten down by lack of funding, you know, whatever it might be, spend an hour in a room in a creative environment with young people and you'll be reminded why it's important that we do it. We need advocates in that field, because otherwise it's just going to wither away and die, I fear.
So what's your opinion on arts education in general? Because I hear very mixed things. Some people say, like, you know, it's terrible with all the cuts and things like that. And other people say, actually, no, there's more opportunities now than when they were younger and they wish they were kind of in school and education now. Where do you see it?
I think arguably there's less around. The statistics would bear that out, really. You know, seemingly there is this reduction in GCSE and A-level take-up across art subjects. But going into schools regularly, you can see it. You know, that the arts are now smuggled in like some contraband. You know, don't let the head teacher see us, but we're going to do some drama, but we'll call it literacy. Or don't tell the head teacher we're going to do some dance, but we'll call it PE. Or we'll do some music, but we'll say it's good for your multiple intelligences if you do it. You know, it's arts for art's sake has all but gone, really. Secondary schools, I think, are fighting the corner, but there again, you get a critical number with subjects. So when you've only got 3 or 4 kids that want to do drama or music or art and design or whatever subject, then schools are making those tough decisions to close subjects down.
Yeah, it's a real problem as well when you pull it out of schools, because then the only people who have access to the arts are the people that can afford to pay for it. And then if they're the people growing up and becoming artists, art's no longer representative of all of life.
No, and I agree with you. And there's a complexity to what you've just said as well. You know, I was doing some training with teachers this morning, and you know, I'd point you in the direction of an average independent school's website. You know, where people are paying decent amount of money to send their children there, and the website, the homepage will have reference to music or dance, or you know, because it's a broad and balanced curriculum, and families recognise the virtue of a broad and balanced curriculum. Compare that to your average state school website, and it's dry, you know, devoid of anything that's arts based. In the main, of course, there are exceptions, but yeah, I think you're right. I think it's becoming the domain of a certain sector of the population. You know, school's about finding your talent, isn't it? It's about igniting that spark, whatever that might be, whether it's science or maths or whatever subject. And if that raft is so narrow that those children aren't ever given the opportunity, how do you know you're good at dancing until you've danced, or art and design? You don't know those things, and education should surely be about giving that broad and balanced education.
Yeah. So what is CLP and how did it come about?
Redundancy.
Okay. What does it stand for?
Creative Learning Partnerships.
Okay.
I moved to York proper in 2000 because the council took a rather bold decision to rather than expand their music provision, because music services have been around local authorities and well established for many years, but they said, no, we don't just want a music service, we want an art service. We want children to encounter drama, dance, music, art, craft and design at all phases. So they took on a team of consultants, and I was the specialist consultant for drama. And for 12 or 13 years worked within the local authority to refine delivery within school, teacher training, working with theatres and galleries and museums on education and outreach. It was a fantastic job and some wonderful projects. I mean, we did the York Youth Mysteries in 2010, which was a reworking of the mystery plays, and I think we had 2,500 kids involved.
Oh, cool.
You know, it was absolutely amazing projects. And it all came to an end when some money disappeared from many countries in 2008, and we had this financial crisis, and local authorities were forced to make some really, really tough decisions about what services they could provide and what services they couldn't. And as you'd expect, you know, arts wasn't really up the top in terms of services that they felt that they could continue to provide. So we fell off, but I picked up the relationship that I had with schools and the projects that I've been doing, things like the dance festival, and just thought, well, I'll see if I can keep this going. I'll see if there's enough in there to earn a living from it. And it's been more than that, really. You know, it's developed into something more than just me.
That's good to hear.
Yes.
So what are you doing at the moment?
At the moment, I am producing an event for World War I that will see over 1,000 children singing together en masse, which I'm really excited about, because it means that I get to work with fantastic artists. In this instance, Jessa Liversidge, who's the musical director for that. So that'll be happening around Armistice Day. A couple of weeks later, we've got the Yorkshire Schools Dance Festival, which is something that we've grown in the 7 years that we've taken it on. So we'll have 1,200 children and young people dancing at Central Hall at the university. From 56 schools and groups around Yorkshire.
Well, that's a lot.
That's all right, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, and that is the absolute sharp end of my entire career, really. You know, the thing that we say to those children and young people is, today's about you. You know, we want you to feel special about yourselves and feel really proud of what you've done. And then on top of that, I do an awful lot of training with student teachers, in-class support with teachers, looking at refining practice, not just for drama, but creative teaching and learning, you know, how we can deliver a curriculum in a way that's as accessible as it can be.
There's definitely a link as well between people who do creative stuff and confidence. Do you see that in some of the kids that you work with? Like, if they can get up and perform something, then it really helps you in other areas of life as well.
No, absolutely. You know, and I mean, it's not for everyone, and anyone that works in arts education isn't suggesting for 1 minute that, you know, we suspend the curriculum. And we could do, and it wouldn't be a bad thing. But, you know, we're not talking every day or every week. We're just talking about those points in a young person's education when they can go, yes, yeah, I've got music, or we're going to be doing some filmmaking or media or what have you.
Because there's jobs as well in those things, and you're never really told that when you're in school. I was never told that you could have a job in media or you could have a job in things like that. It was always, it's not quite realistic. Maybe you should do maths and do that thing there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, coming back to what you were saying earlier on about confidence, I think if delivered in the right way, absolutely. I mean, what I've never attempted to do in any drama sessions that I've run is to make actors out of all of the people in there or thrust them into a spotlight and expect them to be able to perform. Some people, it's just not what they feel able to do or capable of doing. So it's working with young people and taking them to a place where they feel comfortable enough to start exploring the way that they communicate ideas. But no, you can be an artist. Who tells you can be an artist and make a living? You're not going to be a millionaire. Well, you could be. Funny enough, I was in Stockport this morning to just travel, and we were talking about that. That a lot of adults, if you ask them what an artist is, they'll say, well, painting and drawing. And if you say, what about singing? Is that an art form, or dancing, or graphic design, or architecture, or whatever it is? And you get that with young people. And that's why I think it's important every now and again in a school to do arts for art's sake. Because maybe in just highlighting what an artist is, and that it's not someone that paints or draws, it might encourage someone to think about a career in that.
Yeah, it definitely sparks new ideas as well. Like, I spend most of my time making films, doing podcasts, or occasionally music.
Yeah.
But then something I started doing a few weeks ago was just cutting up magazines and arranging it into random collages, and it doesn't look particularly good. But suddenly you see something like, oh, that's an interesting topic. If I grab that word from this magazine and this photo, suddenly that's a whole new meaning. Maybe that's something that could then be explored in a film, or like.
And on top of that, it's an expression of self, isn't it? That's what the arts are. Maybe not by definition, but certainly inherent within what we do. It's expressing ideas, thoughts, emotions. And they're also a fantastic conduit for exploring issues that might be relevant to not just young people, but adults as well, Sorry, yeah. I was
just saying, it's the stuff that people are attracted to. Like, you get parents who often maybe say, they tell their kids don't go and do something creative. But then they still like to go to the theatre. You look at the house, they still collect music. They still consume art, even though they don't really think of it as art. Yeah. It's interwoven in our culture. Yeah. You can't really get away from it.
And it's evolving, and I think that's what's so exciting. You were talking about the potential for you to evolve a new art form, which is combining different media. Well, I mean, that's happening all the time. I'm quite heavily involved in something called Arts Award, which is a qualification route for young people in the arts. And vlogging is massive. Young people do want to vlog, and they want to develop the skills that enable them to do that, which means looking at working with cameras, working with sound, and getting their ideas out there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It teaches you a lot as well. Like, even just doing these, like the kind of the project management in order to make sure the sound's all set up, make sure the cameras are all set up, sync it all up, go through it. It takes a long time.
Yeah.
But, you do that and you go through it and you think, all right, I need to work really hard to get this to be a finished product. But once you've done that, it's like, oh, what else can I do?
Yeah. And they're transferable, aren't they? Core skills, resilience, perseverance. And as you say, you can apply those to different contexts and different situations.
Yeah. So how do you see technology affecting creative learning in the future, or in the next few years?
I think within schools, you're always going to be held back by the limitations of hardware, sadly. There ain't the budgets around to keep up to date with the stuff that's needed. So often that's quite a limiting factor, as is often the teacher's confidence in delivering those things. I think in education, in its sort of looser sense or a formal sense, because education's here, isn't it? Education's at home. I think, and young people taking control of their own education and learning. There's so many exciting and accessible apps out there, or pieces of software, software that I used to pay a fortune for back in the day. I can now download for nothing, and I can try it, and I can trial out ideas. I think the momentum's going to come from the young people themselves. I don't think we've got an education infrastructure that's going to naturally allow for that exploration of new technologies.
And it's a strange dynamic as well, when often you can have a kid sat in a lesson who probably knows more than the teacher because they've spent an hour on YouTube watching the tutorial, and the teacher's trying to teach something from a piece of paper and they don't really understand it.
No.
So that's a very interesting situation to be in. Like, how do you teach stuff that really you don't understand yourself?
Yeah, and teachers say that, that they recognise that they're just one page ahead of students in terms of their understanding of a bit of editing software or graphic design software, and it scares them. I think maybe there's a part of every teacher that wants to be in control, as much as you want to facilitate, an open conversation, you do want to feel confident in what you're doing, and if that confidence is there, you sort of back off. But I mean, we've got that.
Yeah.
that's a classroom plus, isn't it? I can do so much with that. I can record creative work, I can control creative work, or initiate creative work with it, and yet we're banned more often than not.
Yeah. One of my teachers, actually, in sixth form, the politics teacher, he'd have a race. He'd say smartphone versus book, and he'd give us a subject, and he'd say, okay, who can get the answer to this fastest, and one half of the room would be on phones, the other half would be on the books. And occasionally the books would win, but most of the time it's not phone straight away. But I guess they're worried that you're going to be texting and stuff like that. But like, I bought an old car, and I knew nothing about cars a few months ago, but just with a phone, I've managed to replace the prop shaft, replace the exhaust, and just kind of dive in and like, oh, how do I do this? Just look up on my phone.
I've got a shiny new shower pump in my house, courtesy of YouTube.
Yeah.
Just watch the tutorial, and it suits my learning style as well. If I'd had to read about, in fact, there were instructions, but I didn't read those. But I can watch a video, and when I see someone doing it, so in a sense, technology, we talk about learning styles in the classroom, although that's been debunked to a certain extent. But to my mind, there's no doubt that we all learn in different ways. Some will, if I watch you do something, I'll learn it. Some will be able to read about it. And that enables us to learn it in a way that we feel comfortable with and we know.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they're banned at the classroom door. Not in every school, and there are some schools that embrace technology. Yeah,
I've got a younger brother at Manor, and they all have iPads.
Yeah, they made that move very very early on. But I'm not sure he's there anymore. There's an amazing teacher at Joseph Rowntree. I won't say his name, but he based his career on this notion of not knowing, and actually he wanted to teach subjects that he didn't know about, because he believes that when children are given that challenge, they'll raise to it. So when you say to a teacher, whoa, and say, I don't know, should we find out? I tell you what, tomorrow I'll do some research, you do some research, and let's see what we come back with. And the results that he got in those subjects, sorry, Ben.
That's right.
The results that he got in those subjects that he wasn't a teacher in went through the roof, because he was working with the disaffected, whose ideas were being closed down. And there he was saying, I don't know, you tell me.
Yeah, well, it's a creative approach to teaching as well as an actual creative subject. I had a history teacher who'd give us a lot of information, and he'd say, something I told you in there was a lie. So if you can figure out what it is, then I'll give you whatever, like some reward. And everyone would be like, what? Like, you're telling us lies? And then people have to read through the book and check what he said. Yeah. And then you remember that. You're like, oh, it actually wasn't 1922, it was 1926. And then that stands out in your mind, and then you've remembered that bit of information.
And it's that. So this is becoming more like an education podcast than a creative podcast. But I guess it's what I do. It's and that's a teacher that's moving his learners from passive to active learners.
Yeah.
And our system is driving us towards this passive. Just you tell me what you want me to hear, what I need to get to. You've got all the answers. And that's why I think you're getting a lot of young people that are really struggling with the demands of education at the moment.
So if you look at the wider creative scene in York, what do you think York does well and what do you think could be better?
I think what's really exciting within York is that informal network, that collective. I come struggling to think of the right word. There is a right word. But I'll tell you what, the Crescent really excites me.
Yeah.
Why would it not excite you? It's got...
I'm going there tonight.
Well, it's just, I think what Bob and his brother have done at the Crescent is so exciting. It's two individuals that have decided we can make a go of this. You're the success of York. It's an individual that's decided to run with it, to follow a passion and see if we can make it work. So I think it's those informal communities, those individuals, those sole traders, those small enterprises that I think are most exciting in York. Yeah, I don't know whether I'm implicitly saying that the more established are less exciting. I think I possibly am saying that, actually. I think, yeah.
Well, it does come up quite often. Not necessarily people kind of saying, oh, they don't do anything, but artist development is something which comes up time and time again. Like, can the bigger institutions be doing something to support the little guys and give them a bit more of a platform and help them share their story? Because that's what a lot of it comes down to at the end of the day, is stories. People want to feel like they're part of something.
Yeah.
And if you see a big building which has been there for ages and you don't really know the people behind it, it's quite difficult to engage with that.
Yeah.
But that's something that the Crescent have done really well. They kind of friendly people. You can go and have a chat to them. You can walk in and then they're there and they'll say hi, and then they put music on. And then I guess that's what I try and do with the podcast. You can see me talking to people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it's not being negative, but saying like, let's maybe have a bit more development.
Well, it is, and it's interesting that you sort of talk about that sharing. It doesn't go on for whatever reason. It doesn't go on, and I think it's tough being a freelancer. It's tough being an artist. Whether it's involving yourself in participatory arts, community based, or as a jobbing actor or comedian or musician or what have you. It's not easy, and there isn't the support out there. I think if we could do anything better, I think it's supporting those individuals.
Yeah. So what's something that you've learned recently that you wish you knew at the start of your career? Or what advice would you give to someone starting out?
What advice? I don't overthink it, particularly with the arts. If it becomes an intellectual activity, it becomes a very different kind of entity. I don't think I thought about the career path that I was going to take. I just sort of stumbled from one thing to another, but I know it was my passion that led me on, that took me forward. I think people recognise that passion. I mean, I do. I've had, when I worked at the council, that one of the best bits about it was working with young creatives in the city, and being able to offer them some kind of support, just an arm around the shoulder, maybe some signposting to organisations or individuals that you thought you could support. It's what you need, and people will see your passion, and hopefully it will get picked up, and hopefully it'll progress further down the line. And spreadsheets.
Okay.
No, not spreadsheets. But that organisation and that business acumen you do need, and you see great ideas fall by the wayside, not because they weren't great ideas, but because there wasn't that awareness of project planning or budgeting or those kind of things. So I think there is that within that.
Good advice. So if people want to find out more about you and the projects that you're doing, where do they go?
Well, they visit creativelearningpartnerships.org, which is sort of the overarching work that we do. And then for projects like Yorkshire Schools Dance Festival, yorkshireschoolsdancefestival.co.uk, we've got a dedicated website for that. And Facebook and Twitter.
Perfect. And when is the dance festival?
17th and 18th of November and the 24th and 25th of November at Central Hall.
Perfect.
It'll be amazing.
Cool. Well, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you very much, Ben. I'm going to shake your hand.
Cool.
Cheers, man. Thank you.